What we are going to do is demonstrate how to apply the compass hardware from Comfort Company to the Focus. This is the cane mount hardware, and the compass attachments. It utilizes a 5mm Allen wrench to apply to the chair. The first thing we need to do is pull these bolts all the way out to the end threads so that we can open up the cane mount wide enough to go around the canes of the Focus. Once we have done that, we're going to tighten them up slightly so that they'll kind of hold themselves in place, and then we will do the same thing on the other side. We're not going to over tighten them right now, we're just going to snug them. Once we get our cane mount component attached to the chair, we have one on each side. What we will do is bring in the compass hardware that's attached to the backrest and put them into the receivers. It's pretty important to try to keep this kind of perpendicular to the cane as much as possible. Now there is some flexibility. We can rotate it in and out based on the width of the backrest and what we're trying to do. And we'll bring this around and slide that into the receivers on both sides. Once we have the backrest component seated in the receiver, we will want to push this lever forward to lock it in place. Need to do that on both sides, and then we can start our adjustments on the backrest utilizing the slots here and on each side, keeping in mind that we will have to tighten all of these components down before we make delivery. Utilizing the 5mm Allen wrench, we can loosen this and the top one on both sides, and we can slide it up and down in the slots on the backrest. Then we're going to snug it up a little bit, and then we can go in and out by loosening the bolts on the inside and moving it fore and aft. With the backrest removed, so that I can have access to these locking bolts here, we can loosen each side and decide if we need to advance or rotate. The one in the center is going to allow us to move it forward and backward. There are indexes on top, so if we know where we were, we can actually look at these 1/2" indexes and see how far we need to move that to tighten it down. In the center first, and then how much angle we want here before we tighten these here. After that is completed, we'll put them back into the receivers, and generally the way I would like to do that to actually get the back angle perfect is let these be a little bit loose, just snug enough to hold it so that when it goes into the receiver and then comes out of the receiver, the angle of the component does not change. So I can stick it back in and move it around, which I will demonstrate. So as you can see, I've put the backrest back in the receivers, and I have these tilt or back angle adjustments pretty loose. So I'm going to move it into a position that is right for the patient. Then I'm going to open the receivers, pull it out gently, and then I will tighten these. Before we put this back in, we want to make sure that this bolt, and the center bolt are all fully tightened before we make delivery. We also want to make sure that the up and down adjustment, which is this bolt and this bolt, is also tightened fully before delivery. Once we have made sure that all of the bolts on this section are completely tightened and we've placed the backrest back in its receivers, we're going to lock it in by pushing the levers this way. Now that we have the backrest back in place and the lock levers have been pushed into the locking position, we want to then make sure that the cane positions are completely tightened. This requires use of a 5mm Allen wrench. Now you're going to notice that there is a locking component here which will have to be locked down at delivery. It utilizes a 3mm Allen wrench. It is very important to be sure that all of the bolts on the adjustable hardware is fully tightened before we leave the delivery site. That includes the set screws on the sides, here and here, and all of the bolts that allow for adjustment. There is one variation where this silver locking device is not in place, and it is replaced by a bolt, a 5mm bolt on the end that would lock it permanently in position, making the compass hardware not removable.